Hello and welcome to episode 154 of Section 138. I'm your host, Mark Colley, as always, joined by my co-host, Bryson. And we have Jacob back with us this week. And it's a good week to be talking about the Blue Jays. They just keep on winning. It's series after series, series win after series win. And it keeps going, even against a team like the Tampa Bay Rays. How are you, Bryson?
I am doing fantastic. You said it, another series win. The push for the wild card continues, and the Jays are currently sitting half of a game up in that wild card race right now into the first wild card spot. They're continuing to roll. And Jacob, glad for you to join us after two episodes now. You seem to take your hiatus at the worst possible time, but you know what? You must have a lot to say, and it's been fun over the last week. So welcome back to you as well.
Well, thank you. I am very glad to be back, and I'm just glad to be a Blue Jay fan, I think, at this point. And you mentioned the series win. Their sixth straight series win comes in a very crucial time. Now, the Red Sox, I don't think they finished as of their game as of the time we are recording this, but they are tied 3-3 in the ninth. So maybe it's a game, maybe they're tied for the wild card spot. But you know what? We said it. Blue Jays need to go 20-30 at least in September to make a playoff spot, or to get a playoff spot, and they are on pace to blow that out of the water. And I think this is probably some of the best baseball I think we've seen since maybe 2016. And I couldn't be happier, especially considering how up and down the season has gone, and it's starting to really look like it's ending on a very high note.
Yeah, bottom of the ninth for the Red Sox and Mariners. So maybe Seattle has a chance to walk it off. We'll see, but for sure, series win after series win for the Blue Jays. And if anything, this was the time we expected them, or at least I expected them to take a step back up against the Rays. They always have trouble against Tampa Bay, but of course they don't in this series. And the primary reason for it is starting pitching. And this is something that I kind of predicted before this series started, but in the other the flip sense, in a mirror image for the Blue Jays, I thought it would be the Rays starting pitching that was shutting down the Blue Jays. Instead, it was the Blue Jays starting pitching, shutting down the Rays. And that was the case for all three games, even the game that they lost in the middle. On Friday, you have Alek Manoah pitching a gem of a start. He has a perfect game through 4 innings. He retires the first 13 batters of the game in order before allowing a base runner. Just a phenomenal start from him. And he ends the day with only 1 hit allowed, no walks, just a great outing from him. And then Jose Barrios comes out, gives up, 1 or 2 runs on the Saturday game. And the Tuesday game, 1 run. And of course, there are concerns about his health. He was pulled a little bit early with left abdominal strain, but we'll see where that goes. Hopefully it's not too serious. And then Robbie freaking Ray comes out and shoves today with, just the expected amount of strikeouts, 13 strikeouts, no walks, only 1 run allowed on a solo shot to Mike Zunino. So taken all together, it was a very good outing for Blue Jays starting pitching this series. And they kind of held down an offense in the Rays that's one of the best in baseball. They're known for being a pitching first team, but this year they've really stepped up offensively, and they have for the last few years that they've had success going into the postseason. And you saw the Blue Jays do their best against one of the best teams in baseball, and that's exactly what you want. We were always putting an asterisk next to the performance of the last couple series. You get the Baltimore Orioles, and everyone knows who they are. You get the Yankees, and they're struggling. You get the Oakland Athletics, and they're also struggling. The bottom has kind of fallen out for them, but the Rays were a hot team, and yeah, maybe they've lost I think 5 of their last 7 games, so not as hot as it could be. But bottom line, the Blue Jays beat a good team with phenomenal starting pitching, which is incredible to watch.
Absolutely. And you know what? In May, I think we could all agree that pitching, primarily the bullpen, but even starting pitching was a disaster, and it was probably one of the weaknesses of the team. But I'm willing to say that the rotation the Blue Jays have right now is probably one of the best that I've seen in the last 5+ years. And when you look at it, you have an all-star in Barrios, an all-star in Ryu. You have Robbie Ray, who would easily win the Cy Young. Alek Manoah, who's in consideration, I think, for Rookie of the Year, and Steven Matz, who's sub-2 ERA, I think, since or post All-Star break. And look what they did against the Tampa Bay Rays. Only 5 runs allowed all series. Blue Jays, you look at that and you think that's an easy sweep. Unfortunately, 2 of those runs came when they were shut out and the Blue Jays weren't really able to get any offense going in that second game. But pitching was absolutely fantastic. And I mean, Manoah, 10 strikeouts. You mentioned that I think he was actually perfect going into the fourth or the fifth when he allowed that base runner. Jose Barrios, even though he did suffer some abdominal tightness or some strain there, he has not, as of right now, gone for any imaging, which is a good sign. Perhaps it's just he didn't feel too good. He sits the rest of the game out, spends the night recovering. Hopefully, he's able to make that second start or that next start. But even for him, 4 strikeouts. Only he allowed a home run, which unfortunately that loss was charged to him. But he still was absolutely fantastic. And 2 runs over 7 innings, or 1 run over 7 innings to Barrios, and then 1 was charged to Mesa. 2 runs over a full game, that with an offense that the Blue Jays have, that's an easy win, I think. And they didn't win, but I'm still saying, the inner workings of it, maybe the other aspects of it were the fact that this is a promising game to look at, and pitching was absolutely fantastic against quite a good offense. And then obviously we say this probably every single week, Robbie Ray is the ace of the staff. He's probably going to win the Cy Young. I'm saying it right now. He should. He deserves it. 13 strikeouts, only gave up 1 earned run, and it was a home run. So the home run ball still does seem to get him. But I mean, when you're striking out 13 and allowing 4 hits over 7 innings, 1 home run is the least of your worries. So you know what? This overall, if you're Charlie Montoyo, you're saying, hey, this rotation is absolutely fantastic. And I'm not getting too ahead of myself, but I think we all know who's starting a potential wild card game. However, you look in the American League Division Series, that's a 5-game series. You don't need 5 starters. I probably keep Manoah, probably Barrios and Ray in my rotation, maybe not in that order, but in the rotation. If you can put, say, I mean, the Ryu topic's a little bit different, but if you can have Steven Matz in your bullpen take over 4 or 5 innings if you need him, I think that the Blue Jays, from a pitching perspective, could take over any team, and really in the division series and even in the championship series, if you have 4 legitimate starters. Not to get ahead of myself, and I don't want to, I'll only spend a little bit of time, but if you have a rotation that is this good and is shutting down good teams, like they swept Oakland, they swept the Yankees, took 2 or 3 from the Rays. When you have a pitching staff that is this good, I think that this is easily a very promising sign. And if you can get good offense, then this team, I think, could easily finish the season off on a very, very high note. And it already has been, but they could easily continue that, potentially win a crazy game, maybe in Toronto. We'll see. There's a lot of what ifs here, but the pitching, despite, I mean, the offense was fantastic this series, obviously 8-0, and then they won 6-3 today. But I think the primary thing should be the pitching, and the fact that I think it has gone a little bit underrated in the fact that it really has shut down some pretty good offenses, and it's really making this team a threat, I think, and giving the bullpen a rest. Very few relievers were actually used, only 2 today, 2 yesterday, and only 1 in the first game of the series. And easily, I think that this rotation, I think it's showing that it is, I think, the clear strength of this team, probably 1A, 1B with the offense. And you know what? If you're Charlie Montoyo, you now have 3-4 legitimate options that you can absolutely trust in any given situation.
Absolutely. And, you guys were nailing it on the head. The pitching was there. And realistically, too, it's just, you look at it, you wonder, the Jays don't usually match up well against the Rays. And of course, that's obviously taken into consideration, which is why, the expectations weren't through the roof. But from my perspective, I was just pretty much going from eye test of what we've seen over the last, everyone knows the story over the last month now almost, but over the last 14 days especially. And, how hot this team really is. It's hard to bet against them right now to lose a series. It really is. And that's why the game 3 today, which is why I said last time when I was recording with you, Mark, was obviously the best matchup they had with Robbie Ray on the mound. And of course, they were going to take, from what I predicted, either game 1 or game 2. And in that case, they took game 1, which was really exciting to see. So the offense came out flying, except for game 2. I don't know how you guys felt about the offense, or even just like the performance itself from game 2, but I personally wasn't as frustrated as I was usually, like in previous situations or previous scenarios. It just felt like there's a lot of hard hit balls that just went right to the fielders. So I wasn't really frustrated like I usually am in the case where, you know, the offense goes cold and they're swinging at everything and whatnot. Obviously, there was some mistakes going on in that game too, but I just felt like there's a lot of hard hitting contact too, where the Jays got unlucky. But that's pretty much the way it went. And again, it's hard to sweep a team like the Tampa Bay Rays, who are a 90-win team already, and pretty much have the AL East wrapped up. So 2 out of 3 you're going to take at any day of the week. If the Jays took 1 out of 3, I think people would have somewhat been satisfied. But yeah, you know what? Going back to game 1, I mean, it's hard to kind of predict too that Ryan Yarbrough was going to come out of the bullpen and give up 7 runs to the Jays, because obviously in previous games he's kind of owned the Jays, which is why, you know, just the whole opener scenario, the whole opener strategy that the Rays do all the time, it usually works. And he was the bulk man. He came out after Colin McHugh. And then, of course, yeah, the Jays lit him up, and it was just a phenomenal game from Alek Manoah, or a start from Alek Manoah. And, you know, the Jays continue to hit well. I think Breivik Valera, too, went 3 for 3 that game. An honorable mention to him. And, of course, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. went 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs, and he was this close from another home run. But Kevin Kiermaier made I was at the game personally, and that was probably the best catch I've seen in person. So, you know, one of them at least, and that was a really spectacular grab that he made off of Lourdes Gurriel Jr. So, you know, can't really fault him for that. And, you know, going into game 3 as well, Robbie Ray, just all signs looked like it was going to be almost like, for me, it just looked really good from the start. And obviously the Jays got started early today. They got started right in the first inning when Bo Bichette hit a 3-run home run. So that's obviously a good start. You go up a lot of runs, and of course you're entering the, you know, the final 2 innings, you're up 6-1, you give up a couple runs there. But, you know, Jordan Romano came out for the 9th, so I think we were all confident for that as well, even though they were showing the stat conveniently that the Rays are, I think, lead the American League in comeback win. So that probably wasn't the greatest thing to see when Joakim Soria couldn't really throw a strike at the beginning of his appearance, which definitely didn't look good right from the start, because I think it took about 1 or 2 batters for Pete Walker to start warming up Trevor Richards in the bullpen, who was the guy that was going to come out just in case Soria didn't finish the inning. So, you know, that happened there. But you know what? The Jays are still in it in terms of that first wildcard spot, currently half a game lead. And it's really going to go down to the wire with the Yankees and the Red Sox. I don't want to jump too far ahead, even going to the wildcard game right now. I think I'm going to take it almost 1 week at a time. And I think that's what we should be taking it, or not even one series at a time, because this thing, it can go south easily. We've seen it happen before. This thing can go in the opposite direction easily, what we've seen over the last 2 weeks. So, you know, one series at a time, I think, is the way to handle it here. And of course, you'd prefer, or you can do all, you know, everything you can to hope for help from, you know, the out of town scoreboards from, you know, just games all across baseball for the Yankees and the Red Sox. But of course, you know, the Jays are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're focusing on themselves, which is why it's definitely a good situation, or a good spot that they're in right now. You have an off day coming up tomorrow on Thursday as we record it Wednesday night, and they're back in action this weekend in a 3-game series with the Twins. So overall, a spectacular series once again. And a lot of people probably didn't see this coming because it was the Rays, but you get the Twins this week. And then, of course, right after this weekend, you got to go back to the Trop. And then, of course, that's where the real test comes, I think, in terms of, you know, can the Jays hang on for another series win, maybe steal the series down in St. Petersburg. But of course, when the Jays are there, typically it doesn't usually go well. So one series at a time, but I think they have a couple more key series coming up, and you know, they keep winning games. And at this point, I got no reason to believe that they're slowing down the rate that they're hitting it at.
I got 2 reasons to contradict you, Bryson. The number one is I was very frustrated with the offense on Tuesday, not because they were doing anything wrong. It was just painful to watch. It's just one of those games where everything goes wrong, not because, again, there's the team making mistakes. We know playing the Rays, the Blue Jays love to make boneheaded decisions in the field and on the base paths and at the plate and on the mound, but it was none of that. It was just every hard hit ball was finding a glove, and that seems to be the Tampa Bay Rays way. And we saw that points in today's game. There was a couple sliding catches. The one that stands out to me is Brett Phillips in center field sliding for a ball that I forget who hit it, but it was a nice grab by him. And it's just, man, like, come on, Rays. Like, why do you have to be so smart and so knowledgeable about where the ball is going to go every single time? And you mentioned that Lourdes Gurriel Jr. near home run. He also hit a ball to deep right field at one point that died on the warning track. It was just frustration after frustration. So even if the team wasn't making mistakes, I was very frustrated watching the offense in that game. The other count that I'm going to disagree with you on is getting too far ahead of ourselves here. I think the Blue Jays, and thankfully so, they need to get ahead of themselves a little bit here. They obviously need to plan out the rotation to line it up ideally for a potential tie-breaking game 163 or game 162 matters in that case, or even, yes, the wild card game. You want to have your best starters available in that situation, whether it's Robbie Ray, who goes in game 162 or 163 or the wild card, or whether it's Jose Barrios or Alek Manoah or Steven Matz or even Hyun-Jin Ryu that you line up for those games. They got to be looking forward to at least figure out what the schedule is going to look like at that point. And that's what we're seeing them do after this series. I think it was Arden Zwelling or perhaps Ben Nicholson-Smith who tweeted that the Blue Jays are going to kind of take a soft reset after this series. They got the off day, the built-in time to fix things a little bit in the rotation, line it up as they want to for the final few games. And I have to imagine in the case that the Blue Jays do need 3 games to get into the postseason in the case of a 162, 163 slash wild card tiebreaker. And then the wild card game, or even as we talked about last episode, Bryson, the nightmare scenario where they have a game 162 and then 2 game 163s, 2 tiebreaker games for the wild card, and then a wild card game. In those situations, I have to imagine the top 3 guys are going to be going to is Robbie Ray, obviously, first and foremost, but then Jose Barrios and Alek Manoah in that order. I think it has to be those 3 guys we talked about last week, and Hyun-Jin Ryu potentially taking a step out of the rotation and moving to the bullpen, or even sitting off the postseason roster, certainly for the wild card game, probably unlikely for the rest of ALDS, ALCS if they get to that point. But anyways, that all this to say, I'm happy the Blue Jays are looking ahead and kind of lining it up a little bit. And again, you want to win these games. You don't want to prioritize games down the line that may eventually not matter given what happens in these games. But I'm happy to see them rearranging things. On the topic of Robbie Ray, we've talked about Cy Young before. It's his award now. Like I'm calling it now. And I think this is not a bold statement at all, but he's taken a firm step forward away from Garrett Cole. It's his award. I like you could vote today, not knowing the results of the next 2-3 weeks, and he would win the award hands down, and you would be right about him winning the award. It's just ridiculous his dominance, and he is now leading baseball in the amount of games that he's thrown with 10 strikeouts or more. He is one of 2 lefties in Blue Jay history to have a game of 13 strikeouts or more. And it's happened 4 times. It's him 3 times this season, and then Ted Lilly. Like the numbers he's putting up, just absolutely ridiculous. So I think it is without a doubt that he has won the Cy Young Award. I don't know if you guys have reservations that Garrett Cole can still make a final push and win it, but to me, it's over. Robbie Ray has won the award.
Yeah, I think if Garrett Cole does win the Cy Young, then it's more of a popularity contest than an actual representation of who is better. Now, both of them are neck and neck. Like, I don't want to say that Robbie Ray is like a 10 out of 10 and Garrett Cole's a 4 out of 10, like, or a 7 out of 10. Like, they're both equally as good. I just think Robbie Ray has been a little bit better. And Garrett Cole's ERA at 2.75. Robbie Ray after today's start is down to 2.64. Seems a little better to me. The one thing where it is a little bit tougher is Garrett Cole does have the edge in strikeouts by 4 with 224 compared to 220. Now I'm hoping that's an accurate stat. I know Robbie Ray had 13 today. I mean, I don't know if that website has it updated or not, but if it does, then Robbie Ray is taken.
I don't think that includes today's starts because
Okay.
I know he now, I don't know if this is updated now that we've started getting into some of the evening games, but at the end of his start, he led all of baseball in strikeouts with, I think, 237.
Yeah, that's what he'd be at now. So then he's got a comfortable lead over Garrett Cole. So with that being said, I mean, at what point does Robbie Ray not win the Cy Young? And even if like maybe his Baltimore start wasn't great, he started I think with 3 earned runs in the first inning. Maybe if he is a little bit roughed up in his next couple outings, the Blue Jays, he'll probably play in the not this series against the Twins, but probably the next series against the Rays, and then perhaps the series against the Yankees. If he has a bit of trouble in that, then you can argue that, well, Garrett Cole maybe had a better last 2 starts of the season, but I don't think that that's going to happen. I think it has to be Robbie Ray. And don't get me wrong, Garrett Cole is a good pitcher, spider tack or not, but I think that Robbie Ray he's been better. He deserves it. And he's been good all season long, I think, except for his very first start of the season where he had 6 walks. Pretty much other than that, his ERA has just dipped every single start, been mid threes. Now it's mid twos. It's really, it's been all season long. And I don't think that the league can vote against Robbie Ray. And one thing, now I know that this doesn't play a factor, and we debate this with MVPs, is that playoff situations and how they play itself out don't impact how you get voted or whatnot. It's only regular season. And I understand that. But if you're Robbie Ray and you can help lead this team to a wild card and win, that's got to have at least some leverage in the voting. But regardless, wild card game hasn't happened yet. The final 18 or final 15, whatever it is, games hasn't happened. Regardless, or it has to be Robbie Ray. And I think that it would be a shame if he puts up these numbers and continues them over the next couple starts and doesn't get it.
Yeah, I just want to correct, or not even, I think, Mark, you kind of misunderstood what I said earlier. So pretty much what I was referring to was, in terms of looking forward to an ALCS, I'm talking like that far ahead. But of course, if you want to talk about the Jays planning ahead over the next couple of weeks, absolutely. I mean, there's no argument there. I just wanted to correct that, or just make that clear. And, this ties into Robbie Ray for sure, because you want to be sending out your best guys. And we know that, or you just mentioned as well before that, Mark, is that they are going to start planning towards the end of the season and kind of readjusting the rotation. And this is what you got to do. And this ties into Robbie Ray because, yes, it is Robbie Ray's award right now. Garrett Cole left his last start against the Jays with whatever the heck he claims he was injured with. I'm not going to get into any conclusions because he's magically going to be pitching against or is slated to pitch against the Orioles now. But anyways, Lance Lynn's also back for the White Sox. So, Robbie Ray was consistently pitching throughout that span. And of course, he has taken or leapfrogged them in that span. And of course, he continues to pitch well. And that's why he is, this is his award to win. And you hope that he can hold on for it. He keeps making history. I think today was 13 plus games, or 13 plus strikeout games from Robbie Ray, which is insane. And, the strikeouts there, the walks are down, and it's kind of just a complete different image of what we saw going on in Baltimore last week, which is another reason why you look forward to the start today that he had. And he kind of had a good feeling or a good expectation for that, because he comes into the series, or this game, and you're expecting a bounce back performance after what we saw against the Orioles. So that's why there wasn't really any concerns from the start, or any, just any bad feelings toward this game. Everything, all signs pointed to this game going to the Jays from the start. And in terms of this game 3, but yeah, this is his award to win. And when you want to look forward to, or even kind of prepare for the next couple of weeks, I think it is crucial for them to, make him headline the rotation because of this reason alone. And of course, you want to take it one game at a time and not lose focus of what's going on. But of course, you want to plan for the best case scenario. And that is planning for that game 163, game 164, the wild card game. And, even after that, but that's one step at a time for sure. So it's just great to see it. And, every time we come out, we just kind of say it in a different way every time because of how dominant he is. I mean, he's just a fun pitcher all around. He's got the tight pant stroke going, the merchandise. The best part is when you search his name on Twitter, the first thing that comes up is Robbie Ray pants. And then the third thing that comes up is the Robbie Ray grunt. So not even is his actual performance one of the top suggestions. It's, just other stuff going around with him, and, the merchandise stuff and everything. I ordered my t-shirt. I don't know if you guys did yet or not for for tight pants, but everything about him, it's just good vibes all around. And you do hope there's a way for this guy to stay, but it's just a pleasure watching him, and a treat every time when he does this, especially going against the Rays like this and kind of, just destroying them in terms of what we saw from his box score today. And they made a good point today, or just a fact or a stat in general, is that every series the Jays have played the Rays this year, Robbie Ray has started against them. So I think he most likely will be pitching at the Trop next week, even with the readjustment of the rotation. And I think that's pretty much the last time they play Tampa. So it looks like when the season's all said and done, every series that he plays the Rays, or the Jays play the Rays, Robbie Ray is started in the game. And that's crucial and important, and just everything It's just impressive because the Rays have seen him so many times. He's obviously seen the Rays offense so many times, and he continues to dominate them. And that's what you need going into the playoffs. That is the confidence you want in a wild card game. There's no hesitation. Robbie Ray's the guy getting the ball right now. A few months ago, you may have had a little bit more of a debate, but right now it's not even a question. You're confident in what he'd bring and how good he'd be. And that's why every time he pitches, it's just a treat with his fastball and everything. I think his fastball was up to 97 today in the first inning. And that's, I think, a little bit faster than usual for him. But either way, I mean, this late in the season too, that's impressive to see. He seems to be in good shape and everything in terms of his health. And you just hope this continues to boil over. So he's got another start against the Rays next week. And I'm expecting the same thing as much as it's at the Trop. So this is his award to win for sure. And if he keeps doing what he's doing right now, there's no reason to believe that this is not his award at the end of the year.
And can I just say quickly, the good thing, like we talk about how good Robbie Ray has been, and he's been absolutely fantastic. But when you're restructuring this rotation, you also have 2 or 3, probably 3 other guys that are equally as good, I would say. Now, Robbie Ray still, I would say, better than Manoah, than Matz, and Barrios and whatnot. But if you're restructuring this rotation, all you need to do is plan to have Robbie Ray in that potential tiebreaker or wild card. It's not like we need him to pitch. You remember David Price back when he was with the Blue Jays? They restructured the rotation so that he ended up playing the Yankees, I think 10 times or 4 or 5 times, whatever it was, out of his 10 starts. Like half of them were against the Yankees. And the thing with Ray is all you got to do is have him scheduled for that one game that you want, and you can trust the rest of your rotation. So this shows a real strength of the Blue Jays. I pray that he is back next year because I think the Blue Jays can afford him. I think they can afford both him and Barrios. That's a discussion probably for a year from now. But as of right now, the rotation, it's looking good, and it's not just I think it's a lot more simple than just saying, how do we get Robbie Ray in as many games as we want? It's more of how do we just get him for that one game, and then the rest of the guys will fill in for him or fill in those other games, and they'll do very well.
Yeah, I hesitate to even bring him up anymore because there's nothing new to talk about with him. It's just Cy Young keeps on dominating, keeps on making Blue Jays history. There's really nothing new. It's just I feel bad if we don't talk about him because he's doing historical things. He's being amazing. And the same thing with Vladdy. As much as we want to talk about, will he reach 50 home runs, which for the record looks like he will, even though I said he wouldn't. Is he going to win the MVP? Where, Triple Crown, all this stuff. There's nothing new under the sun with these guys. They just keep on dominating. And, I hate to avoid talking about them and I hate to say the same thing every week, but it's true. It's very consistent, dominant performances from both of them. So lots and lots of fun to watch. And if we're talking about consistency, you can always bet that people are going to be criticizing Charlie Montoyo, and we haven't had a criticizing Charlie Montoyo section in quite a while. I feel like those people have kind of fallen off the face of the earth because the Blue Jays, of course, went 15-2 over a span of 17 games, but they are officially back and in droves. We have Saturday's game, of course, the game that the Blue Jays lost 2-0. I believe it's the 8th inning. You have the bottom part of the order coming up, and there was people criticizing Charlie Montoyo for not pinch hitting, especially not pinch hitting Reese McGuire with someone like Alejandro Kirk or even Danny Jansen, given his success since he's come off the injured list. Do you hold Charlie Montoyo accountable for not pinch hitting in that situation? Is a criticism he had received, even if it's only from a small minority of people, a valid criticism against him? And as I say this, the Red Sox just hit, looks like a single. So now it's 6-3 Red Sox. So it's going downhill fast. But anyways, Charlie Montoyo, the decision on Saturday to not pinch hit, where do you stand on that?
I want to hear your thoughts first, Bryson. I'm kind of torn on this one.
Wow. Jacob's going to drop some bombs.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm not gonna hold him accountable for it, but if he was gonna do it, maybe it would have. You can't guarantee anything. I mean, I'm not out with the pitchfork gonna blame him for that because this run they've been on for the past 2 weeks now, and it's kind of funny because in that 2 weeks there hasn't been anything. So I think we've learned a lot from that point over the last 2 weeks, because it seems like, and we kind of had more of an answer. I mean, I feel like we did, because all season we've been saying he's a scapegoat, blah blah blah, and really until this point, we really haven't experienced this team playing at their fullest potential, and then dealing with Charlie Montoyo criticism. So all of a sudden, the Jays kind of turned it on in these last 2 weeks, and it answered my question. We have not heard any criticism from people about Charlie Montoyo in this span. And I don't think it's a coincidence, because that's just something that I think we've all kind of noticed, or at least us three have, as much as whoever's listening likes him or not. I think that that's just the truth. I think the bullpen's been executed when they've been executed. I think, some decisions he's made, pinch running decisions, everything like that, a lot of people have actually credited him for that. And I think there's a lot of things that he's done that have actually benefited the team. One thing that comes to my head, going back to last week when the Jays swept the Yankees in New York, was when Gerard Dyson came off the bench and pinch ran at third base. He scored on a sac fly without even sliding. And then everyone was saying that that would not have happened if he wasn't in the game, blah, blah, blah. That's just one thing that comes to my mind all around. But, I just don't see a reason to hold him accountable for not pinch hitting Reese McGuire in a situation like that yesterday. I understand that Reese McGuire, I think that was his first game in almost a week, because obviously the Jays are at carrying three catchers. So it's kind of, it's hard for everyone to kind of get playing time. And that's just the way the cards have been falling for someone like Reese McGuire. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. It really is, because I really don't know about you two, how you feel about it. It's just, I think it's hard for me to explain it, but I don't know if you guys really understand what I'm saying. It's just that I didn't criticize him for it, but if he decided to do it, I think we, like, obviously, probably on paper, on a matchup, it would be just better for the team if someone like Alejandro Kirk came off the bench or something like that. You know what I'm trying to say? So in terms of that, but I don't see why to hold him so accountable for that at all. Just the way the game's been going, and even going back to what we were talking about, Mark, is and it was frustrating in a different way than what we've seen before. Just nothing was going right. And there was really no signs of anything changing, other than the Jays kind of, having good contact and getting unlucky. And that's why I think a part of me too, maybe that had a reason for me not to criticize him for that. There's a lot going on with this one. And I think the problem that I have, because I don't really have a firm answer, is that we're really nitpicking this way too much. I think we are. And then if you want to even talk about today with Joakim Soria in the third game, I mean, it was 6-1. And I think, I don't see how you blame him for bringing him in a game like that. And then, of course, the other thing too is they reacted very quick. They got the bullpen going, I think, 2 batters later. So, like, I don't know what you want him to do other than, to have a crystal ball and predict everything going to be perfect, because that's just not possible, or not, realistic for anything like that. So that's why I just think I think it's getting to the point now where I'm sick of it. And I think we're overreacting, unless he does something really stupid in the future. I'm really not here to criticize him. I mean, I don't see how over this last stretch of these last 2 weeks, you're going to come out here and criticize him for that and not realize what the run the Jays have been on, the month of September they've had, the ground they made up in the AL East. Their last homestand, they were 4.5 games out of the AL wildcard spot. And that's what I'm sorry. I corrected myself from before, the wildcard spot, not the AL East. But, they were 4.5 games out last homestand, and just everything that they've done over the past week. I'm not here to criticize. I'm here to be positive, and I'm here to be optimistic, because we've gotten every single signal from the team that they're not slowing down. And that's just the way I'm at. I'm kind of moving on quickly, and I'm just staying positive about this team right now. I'm not here to criticize anyone, other than kind of just give everyone a major props of what they've been doing the last 2 weeks.
See, I wanted to hear what you said, because I was torn, and I'm going to say I don't blame him. Yes, okay, in hindsight, it maybe could have worked. Maybe if the Blue Jays, if Montoyo allowed him to pinch hit, maybe something could have been different. But at the same time, if Guerrero's line drive with 2 men on didn't go straight to the center fielder, things could have been different. But we don't criticize him for that. And I know that that's very different. But the point is we're at this point, we're nitpicking, not us, but a lot of people nitpick literally everything. Like Montoyo could drop his pen on the floor and people will somehow blame him for not penciling in a guy in time, and he can't make the lineup or whatever. Like, it's just, a lot of the arguments are ridiculous. Some I agree with. You go back to earlier in the season, and there were Definitely a lot. The Tyler Chatwood situation where he walked like 4 straight batters and nobody warmed up. Absolutely, you blame the manager for that. But at this point, it doesn't make sense. And I wanted to bring up the fact that we haven't seen much hate on Montoyo in the last couple weeks because they have been winning. And I've thought about this. It's like, I don't really go on Twitter that often, but whenever I do, the majority of it is people retweeting and quote tweeting random arguments about why Montoyo is the worst manager in baseball. And the fact that we've seen a lot of these runs or runs being scored and a lot of scoreless innings by pitchers, and we've not seen criticism, I think that correlates. And it's the fact that when this team is good, the fans are happier, and that's fair enough. But when they're bad, a lot of the criticism I think diverts from the actual players to the manager. Regardless, different situation. If we're gonna nitpick everything, we might as well become lawyers or something. Like, I don't really know. It's mind-boggling to me, the fact that so many people want to say, well, this one specific play is the reason why the team lost. And it's like, okay, well, there were like 8 other innings that this team could have scored runs on, and there were plenty of chances where they had runners on and they didn't get anything out of it. That's where I'm at. We're at the point where, like, I only blame Montoyo if he makes a dumb decision. And to say that, oh, well, you didn't pitch hit this one guy, it's like, that's pretty nitpicky. And I mean, at the end of the day, that it is all, I think, subjective. Like, just because some people think that, well, what if, and I mean, I'm sure Montoyo and his crew have a lot of stats brought up, and perhaps the guy that they were facing, the pitcher, maybe has Kirk's numbers. Probably not. I don't think Kirk has faced him because he's very new to the league, but maybe Kirk is not as good against those hitters or whatever. Like, I'm sure the decision to leave McGuire in was more thought out than just, oh, we're not gonna pinch hit him or whatever. And also, like you just mentioned, the fact that he hasn't played in a week, you got to get guys in eventually. I know you do have 3 catchers, so it is going to get crowded, but at some point, guys have to play and whatnot. So regardless, like, I still think we need to remember the big picture. Blue Jays have only lost 2 games, I think, or 3 games in September. They have been on one of the best rolls I think we've seen in years. They went from 4.5 games out of a playoff. I think it was actually maybe 5 or 6 games out at one point, to now half a game lead in the wild card. It will probably be a 3-way tie again at the end of the night. But this team has been fantastic. And to say that, well, one specific incident from one specific game means the manager sucks, like, that's just, I won't have it. I'll put it that way. I think Montoyo he doesn't deserve that much hate. I think people, I think, do need to chill with the hate a little bit.
Yeah, I think, like, Montoyo makes mistakes, but I think the big mistakes that he makes is giving license to people to criticize the tiniest of tiny mistakes. And that's what we saw on Saturday. Like, he does make mistakes with who he brings in the bullpen and the decisions we've talked about in the past. But that doesn't mean that we have to harp on every tiny thing that he does. And that's what frustrates me. And that's what, gets all of our blood pressures up when we watch these games and we scroll through Twitter and looking at people reacting to these. It's like, the tiniest of things doesn't matter all that much. Like, give it a break. Don't overreact to everything that's happening. And that's what makes me mad about this criticism. And again, like, we don't know what's going on. We're on the outside looking in. We are in a world that only has selective information, that only has partial information about what's happening in these situations. And just to bring up one example of where people got mad at Montoyo, you look at the series against Baltimore and Brandon Hyde. In the Friday night game, you have him chirping Robbie Ray and Robbie Ray going back and forth on the mound and everyone screaming, including Joe Siddle. So it's not just like stupid trolls on Twitter. It's an established baseball guy who's played the game and knows what he's doing. You have people yelling at Montoyo for not standing up for his pitcher and for not reacting and for not defending his guy on the mound and getting all up in the face of Brandon Hyde and doing all these things that people want him to do. But then you look at what happens the next game. Clearly, they did not need that enthusiasm from their manager. Clearly, whatever Charlie Montoyo did or didn't do in the clubhouse or on the field after the game was enough, because the Blue Jays come out and have, the best 4-game stretch in the history of the team, where they score 52 runs, which beats the previous record by 7 runs. Like it's ridiculous to me to criticize every tiny thing that he does or doesn't do when, yeah, sure, there are valid criticisms you can make of him, but when you nitpick a tiny thing, it's like, come on. And I don't know if, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like with other Toronto sports, and I'm especially thinking of the Maple Leafs, the tendency is to criticize the player. The tendency is to criticize the athlete who's on the field or on the court or on the ice. For some reason, it feels like with baseball and it feels like with the Blue Jays, the tendency is to always criticize Charlie Montoyo. It's always his fault when things go wrong. And it's never the player's fault. It's never, the front office's fault that you have Tyler Chatwood and Trent Thornton in the bullpen. It's always Charlie Montoyo's fault. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's because of the way baseball works, as we know, with it being a team sport, but I just don't understand it. And it's really frustrating to me to watch all these criticisms of Charlie Montoyo. Anyways, we have enough Charlie Montoyo criticisms to last a lifetime, but I feel like we need a theme song at this point for like the Charlie Montoyo roast session. Because at this point, it's a weekly occurrence. It's a occurrence that happens at pretty much every episode, except for when the Blue Jays are winning.
Probably need to get the I know was that guy Charlie Brown the Peanuts guy. We might need to get that piano theme. You said the name Charlie just brought in my head, but yeah. I just want to say, as a Leaf fan, you are totally right. I think there's probably within the last maybe like 3-4 years, there's only been a few instances where the coach actually ever got heat or was on the hot seat. I think one game in the playoffs where, and I'll just make this quick because this isn't obviously a baseball podcast, but where Patrick Marleau played more than Austin Matthews when the Leafs were down in Game 7 in the third period. Mike Babcock got a lot of heat, and then he was fired. Actually, I think the next season or whatever, 2 seasons later. But other than that, it's pretty much all on the players, and even previous eras, it was. Yeah, I do think that the media is a little harsh on the players, and vice versa. They're harsh on Charlie Montoyo, but I feel like when you're criticizing the player, it's a little bit different because they can actually impact the game. And I know the coach they can choose who goes on the field. And with baseball, it is different. If you put in a bad pitcher, I think that's a lot more noticeable than if you have, say, your third line, your third defensive pairing, and they get scored on. That is a little bit different. But I will say that the Heat, I think, should be more on the players than the managers, especially considering baseball is a sport where there's 27 outs for each team each game. Now, yes, obviously, if you're losing an away game, you only have 24, but that's besides the point. You have equal opportunities to score runs, and to argue that, well, that one batter in the 7th or 8th inning is the reason you lost is just ridiculous. Because, like I said earlier, Vladdy had his chances. There were many opportunities with runners on that the Blue Jays could have done well, and it seems as if people don't want to argue that or don't want to criticize the players on that, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense for me, because the players are the ones actually on the field. And I think maybe the one argument for that, and this might not be a good argument, I'm just thinking out loud, is the fact that in baseball, the best hitters, Guerrero, for example, hitting a little bit over 310, almost 320, you're still getting him out almost 70% of the time. So maybe people are saying, well, we're not gonna bleep on Guerrero because he's, the best hitters are only going to hit 300 or whatever. There's still a vast or a much greater chance that you get him out than he hits. So it's okay if he doesn't get a hit, but I don't really think that that's a good argument. I think it still should be, if you got runners on scoring or in scoring position, or you have runners on and you're down, you're in a close game and you don't score at all, like you get shut out. I know they've only been shut out 3 times now, twice going into that game, but it should be more on the players because they're the ones that do play. And yes, you can put in a bad reliever, but it's just, I don't think that you can fully criticize the manager for everything, because baseball it's a wild sport. And as we've seen, the offense can go from scoring literally like 3 touchdowns in one game, and then it can get blanked in 2 games later. So it's a weird game, but you can't just blame the manager for everything, because at some point, bring back Chatwood, the debate, or you bring back all the injuries, and you bring back when Guerrero was hitting under 200 going into the end of August, early September. At some point, it should be on the players who, for the most part, have been fantastic all season long. Like, let's not say that they've been bad, but uh, eventually the debate needs to be, are the like when the team doesn't do so well, it needs to be, I think, players and manager, probably more players than manager. But if the only time you really do say a manager is not doing his job is when there's a blatant mistake. It's not the team lost, therefore let's just throw a pitchfork at the manager, because that's just a dumb argument in my opinion. And that's part of the reason why I don't go on Twitter as much as I probably should, because most of it is just irrational 200 character tweets or whatever the limit is. It's just a random all caps sentence about how bad Montoyo is, and most of them are just not accurate. So I don't agree with most of what they say.
I just think it's going to be funny to the Montoyo haters when he's back next year. I think that's just going to be the part that gets me. I think people are actually almost concerned that he's going to be back next year. I don't know what people are expecting, but yeah, like I don't know. Everything's been fine the past couple of weeks. I mean, that's an understatement. Everything's been fun. This team's the funnest, or the hottest team in baseball right now, or if not one of them. And we're nitpicking at little things here. It just doesn't make sense to me. That's why I'm not going to say much more. But I just move on. Why aren't we celebrating the Jays, in a playoff spot, or, still taking away 2 out of 3 from the Rays? It's been a while since I think the Jays, have played that good against the Rays, even though they've won games against the Rays in the past. It's just that, beating the Rays, this well, scoring 8 runs in one game and then winning 6-3 today. Just everything went well from that point. But yeah, I mean, I just don't understand it. So we will see. And we can't wait for the next series to start.
Yep. And as always, we end the podcast with a prediction of how the upcoming series is going to go. 3 against the Minnesota Twins. I can start this one off. I have been continually underselling the Blue Jays, with the exception of the series against Baltimore, where I was correct in saying 3 out of 4. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say they sweep the Twins. This obviously isn't a bold prediction because they're playing the Minnesota Twins, but that's what I'm going to say for this series. What do you guys think is going to happen?
I'm gonna say the same thing. Now we know the rotation's probably gonna look a little different, and normally I give a little bit of a pitching preview. As of right now, Ryu is maybe gonna start against Michael Pineda in Game 1. Very fluid, but yeah, I think the way the offense has been, I don't think a sweep is very unlikely at this point, unless somehow you get one of those ridiculously good pitching performances from any of the Twin starters. Because, like, at the end of the day, the Blue Jays, the game they lost against the Rays was a game where the pitching was against them was absolutely fantastic, where their pitching was as good as it's been all series and as good as it's been all month. So as long as that doesn't happen, I think a sweep is very likely. We're getting at the point where it's going to be important. You got to take pretty much every game. Now I know the 20 and 30 mark it's well within reach. I think they're like they need to go, I think, 500 the rest of the way to make that 20 and 10 mark, or to get to that milestone. But I don't think that's likely to get them in the playoffs. And I think that they are going to surpass that. So we're going to need a sweep at least, or 2 games, 2 out of 3 at least. Sweep is the best case scenario. Let's just hope it happens, and let's hope that this wild card spot can keep up for the next couple days.
I think this is a first, Mark, because usually it's been me predicting the better outcome. I don't know about this. I'm not feeling a sweep this weekend. I think 2 out of 3. But
What?
hey, I don't know. I'm
Are
not
you feeling
it.
all right, Bryson? Like,
I think 2 out of 3 this
you have
weekend.
To get tested for COVID? Like, are you sure you're?
I honestly, I just don't. After what we
No
saw
taste.
from Ryu, I'm very skeptical about Ryu right now. I can't commit to him coming out. I mean, I know he's inconsistent. I know he's up and down. He's facing off against Michael Pineda on Friday night. And then Saturday, I think Steven Matz, and Sunday is when I think the readjustment begins. I think usually it's Alek Manoah, but we might see possibly Jose Barrios. We might see something different happening on Sunday. So I think 2 out of 3, and that is still fine. That is still fine, but 2 out of 3. I don't know. I don't know what it is, and I think it's the first that I'm under predicting what you're predicting. So I'm I hope I'm wrong. I do hope I'm wrong this weekend.
Well, that's disappointing. So we
I
got
don't
2
know.
predictions for a sweep.
Yeah,
We got
and
one
for 2
prediction for 2
But
out of
it's
3. We'll see what
all a
happens.
series win, though. Yes.
Yes, it's still a series win. Still, I'll take it. Like if they, whatever, they lose one, they lose one. It's life. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you to everyone who listened to this episode and our returning segment of Charlie Montoyo Hate. We will, I promise, have a theme song for it next time we talk about it, which I'm sure will be in probably like 3 days.
Probably
But
the
until
Charlie
then,
Brown theme.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll take suggestions. Tweet us or DM us on Instagram about what you think the theme song should be, and we'll incorporate it into the episode and give you a shout out if we select your song. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you to everyone who listened. As always, you can support our podcast on Patreon by going to patreon.com/section138pod. You can follow us on social media at section138pod on Twitter and Instagram, and we'll take your suggestions for theme songs there. You can give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, which just helps spread the word about what we're doing. And then lastly, you can watch this episode on YouTube. If you're listening to it, if you're watching it, you can listen to it wherever you find podcasts. So we're looking forward to this series against the Twins. More exciting baseball on the way, and we will catch you at the end of this weekend and hopefully the series sweep.